both ways.
Oh, okay. Oh no, I mean right here, because you. Or is this me?
You're asking all those.
So do I ask you this or this answer this?
All of them.
Oh, this and then this? Oh,
So is
okay.
that
Okay.
Bluetooth? This one? No.
So
Go-
record
go for
straight to the thing.
Yeah.
So check the audio though.
Yeah. I'm getting in good levels. As long as you just guys start talking, we can catch more audio.
More audio? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be the one asking you all the questions.
Okay.
Like an interview, you know. Please state your full name, age, and place of birth.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm Betty Weaver, and my birthday is 10/5/29.
That's what I know.
So I'm 88 years old, but I'll be 89 the 5th of October.
Well, that's the same age of my grandpa. I think he's 87 or 88.
I'm 88.
And then he wants me to repeat more to get like the mic more sensitive. Please say your name and where you live. So, for example, I'm Betty Weaver and I live in Avenel, California. Can you repeat that?
I'm Betty Weaver, and I live in Avenel, California.
Thank you. And then again, my name is Betty Weaver and I've lived in Avenel for how many years?
I'm Betty Weaver, and I've lived in Avenel since 1947.
Okay, thank you.
I was gone a few years, but my husband's job took us to Bakersfield for a period of time. But when he passed away, I moved back to Avenel.
Oh, okay. So can you please tell us about your childhood? Where you grew up? Your childhood? Where you grew up?
Where I grew up?
Yes.
I grew up in Oklahoma until I was 9 years old, and we moved to Kerman, California.
Okay. How were you introduced to Avenel?
What?
How were you introduced to Avenel?
My family moved here, and of course I was still at home, and I moved here with them.
How long did you live here? When did you move back?
How-
Those two questions.
Do what?
The other two questions. The first one is how long did you live here?
How long did I live here?
And when did you move back?
I lived here from 47 to 66, and we moved to Bakersfield, and I moved back in 82 and run the motel here in Avenel when it first opened, and it opened because of the prison.
Oh, the prison. Okay. Was there a lot of like people working here in the prison that decided to move here to the motel, or?
Well, my brothers had a job here when my family moved here, and that was in 47. And the main business in Avenel at that time was the oil fields, and they ran till about 1951, and in 1951, PG&E moved their power plant here from Texas, and we received our natural gas through a pipeline. And about that time was when the oil fields were kind of merging here in town, and then they started moving out, and then after PG&E was here for, I think it was in the 80s, I'm not for sure what year, that Brockovich brought a lawsuit against PG&E because of the chemicals they were using for their cooling tower to clean their cooling tower was causing people to have cancer. And so she brought a lawsuit against PG&E and settled for a big settlement, because everybody that worked out there or went swimming out there or anything was entitled to apply for part of the money that she recouped. And then when PG&E moved out was about the time they opened the prison, which was a good boost for Avenel.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And my son-in-law, Harlan Cassidy, was one of the people that lived here that went and applied to get the prison here.
Oh, yeah.
And so they okayed for the prison to be here. And that was a big boost for Avenel. And then after they opened this one, and it was open for a while, they opened another one between here and Kalinga.
Oh, yeah.
And then they opened another one, a return to custody over in Kalinga. So a lot of people drove from the coast and Fresno and all over to work in these prisons.
Oh, and they would stay here during the week at the hotel?
No, they drove back and forth.
Oh, they drove back and forth?
And then the thing that Avenel is noted for at this time is the pistachio nut capital of the world. And I think that was 3 years ago that they were nominated for that. And that is a big boost to Avenel because they definitely support Avenel. And anything that Avenel has going on, they're in there to back them.
Yeah, that's true. I'm
So-
actually taking some classes on behalf of them.
Huh?
I'm actually taking some classes on behalf of them. So they're paying for them here in town.
Well, they used to open to the public, and the public could go out there and buy gifts. They had a gift shop, and one of the gifts that I purchased was a replica of California, and it was a wooden box filled with pistachio nuts, and I bought some of those for gifts one year.
Oh, yeah?
And that was back in 2003.
2003?
The reason I remember that was the year that Nicole Parra was running for an office in Sacramento.
Well, that's a pretty good memory. I have trouble with dates. I have to write all the dates down or else I'm not very good with dates. The next question is, what organizations were you involved in,
Most involved in
or any?
every organization that came along. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and as my kids got older, a PTA president, Pocahontas, the museum,
Museum.
yeah, and
Oh, so you were very active in the community, to say the least.
I did attend to all of them, but I haven't in the last few years because I had knee surgery and sometimes I'm not able to go. But
Oh, can you please talk a little bit more about the community service you've done in this community?
well, I've helped several people buy houses and sell houses and just anything I could do that people needed doing.
And why were you so dedicated to community service? What drove you to help so much?
I think it was the way I was raised. So, you know, my mother used to take in anybody that needed a meal or place to sleep or anything else, then they was willing to. And when she lived here in Avondale, a lot of people still remembers if their mothers was working or anything, they would go down to Mom's and eat.
Oh,
So I guess that's where I got it.
And
But I think there's a lot of pleasure in helping people.
it just warms your heart.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. And what was your proudest achievement in Avenel?
Do what?
Your proudest achievement in Avenel?
I really don't know.
Yes, so many.
I think probably the one I really enjoyed most was when I joined Pocahontas, because when my husband was alive, we traveled all over, and I knew where to go and how to drive. And I hauled, anytime we went to a meeting out of town, then I was the driver. But it was a lot of fun.
Can you explain a little bit what Pocahontas is?
It's a organization that picks a place every year to and supports them, like we supported the Cancer Society of Kids one year,
Oh, okay.
and we bought little red wagons for them to ride to and from their treatments in a wagon. And then, what's that house called that people can stay in when their kids are in the hospital?
Oh,
Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, we supported that one year.
oh, so it's just like a big nonprofit help.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit organization that picks a place every year that we support, and we raise money to support them.
Oh, okay. That's a lot of help for them, for everybody.
Yeah.
And how did you get involved with the museum of Avenel?
Well, there was two ladies here that they wanted to start a museum, and they couldn't find a place to have it. And about that time we had a church here that was closing up, and I knew the ladies that was going to start it. It was Penny McKinney and can't think the other, and can't think her name. Anyway, she went, the one that was going to help Penny with the museum, she went on vacation back to Texas and passed away while she was back there. So anyway, Dinah was left by herself to do it. And of course, I went to senior citizens, and the lady that was head of the senior citizen was also in charge of the church. So I told Dinah about the church, and I said she wants to give it to somebody so they won't tear it down, because the lumber yard wanted to buy it, but they wanted it for storage, because it was just across the street from the back of the lumber yard. And so that's how we got the museum. And Molly Rice had the first meeting at the museum at her house, and me and Danny Pratt was the first people that paid our $100 towards the museum. So we're still charter members of the museum. And they have a meeting once a month
Once a month.
and
Okay, the next question is, what notable events do you remember in Avenel? Like anything important or that really sticks out in your head?
What did you say?
Any notable events that happened in Avenal? Anything that you really remember fondly of or important?
Well, there's several things, you know, like we got the park, because Avenel is not an old town. You know that. It was only started in 1929. And so it's not an old town in comparison with most towns. And not too long ago, there was a guy from the state, and I don't remember what I was talking to him, why he came to see me, but anyway, he said that he really admired Avenel because it never had a slum area. And he said most little towns does have. And he said that Avenel doesn't have, and he was quite impressed with it. So, you know, but, well, I've been here so long and know a lot of people in Avenel. And I love living here because of that. You know, when my husband went to work for PG&E in 1951 when they first moved in here, and there was 5 guys that went to work out there at the same time, and we all became good friends. Well, now they're all passed away except me and one more lady, and she lives in Kalinga, but I still stay in touch with her.
That's great. We want to know more about like how the park came to be. Do you know any more about that?
About what?
The park? How it came
The
to
park?
be? Yeah.
Well, I don't remember. Floyd Rice started getting up interest in a park, and so I worked with him on that, and then we were the first board members of the park. And now I don't even know that they have any board members or anything. The city eventually. See, Avenel wasn't a city, and hasn't been for just recently, within the last, I'd say 10 years. We just recently got our own police force, and at one time all the fire department that was here was volunteers. They didn't have any paid firemen.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Monco was one of the volunteers.
Yeah.
And what shaped Avenel to what it is today?
What do you think shaped it?
Yeah, to like the community that we are, how we just got the police force. Like what drove us to be Avenel? What do you believe?
What do I believe that caused Avenel? Because it was always changing, and when one business or something happened, there was always another one that came in to take its place. So we've always had enough money to kind of keep things going.
Oh, okay, so we just kept flourishing. If someone fell out, someone took its place?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so we just kept going. We had to keep it on.
Well, when the oil field closed down, PG&E moved in. When PG&E moved out, the prison came in.
Oh, so.
And so, you know, and the last thing that's been a notable thing was when Avenel was named the pistachio nut capital of the world. And they pay a lot of money into the organizations and anything pertaining to them.
So
You know, like when they have their nut festival every year, they support that 100%.
so they give back a lot.
Yes.
And what do you think about Avenal's future? Where do you think Avenal is going?
Going to become in the future?
Yeah. How do you?
Well, I think the farming has really picked up here in Avenel compared with what it was, you know, in years past. So that has been a big help for Avenel. But now the water situation has kind of put a stop to that too. Hasn't put a stop to it, but it's slowed it down. So I don't really know.
Do you see Avenal getting bigger or staying as it is?
Well, we'll eventually get bigger. And the reason I think it will be is at one time we had a group of people from Mexico that came through here and harvested. They started at the Imperial Valley and they worked clear up to Salinas, and that was their last place to work. Well, now that the president we have has kind of put a stop to that, then I think that eventually the border will open up because he wants to build a wall. Well, the people are not coming over that wall. The majority of the people that comes into California has been coming through a tunnel. So there's no way, and they bring them over the border and drop them from planes. So they're not going to stop them from coming up here, and I don't blame them for coming up here. And if they'd open the borders, the majority of them would come up here and work when they're needed, which we do need them, and then they would go back home in the wintertime when the harvest was over.
Yeah, that's what my dad actually used to do. He had a little RV that he would drive down from the coast all the way up to Salinas and follow the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and they came every year.
And they generated a lot of money for us, a lot of taxes and stuff.
Why, sure, because, well, we had a family here in town, and he had kids about the age of my kids. Well, my kids went out and worked in the harvest one summer, and my son did for about 2 or 3 years, but my girls didn't. They got lazy, and he thought it was awful. He said he told his kid he couldn't go out there and work. He said, you know, he could find a better job than that. Well, I don't feel like anybody's too good to do anything. And I think we need them people.
Because when you go out there, it really shows you that, oh man, I don't want to be out here. I want an education. I want,
Yeah.
And to them, that is better than what they have down there. So they're happy to do that job for that money.
Well, my kids did whatever they could to earn $1 because when PG&E moved in here and we had 4 kids, and my husband brought home for 2 weeks $60-some, and I've got proof of that. I mean, even people that went to work when he did couldn't believe it a few years ago when I said something about it. And I showed him one of my husband's paycheck stubs. And he said, well, I don't remember working that cheap. But see, they was making maybe $1 an hour. And it was hard for us to get by on that with 4 kids. But so actually, the times back there, stuff was cheaper and everything. And we were always lucky enough we bought our houses. We never rented.
Oh, okay.
So,
That was always smart.
and that's about all I know. And, you know, and then when my husband went to work for the union, that was when the unions were just becoming into existence. And they were strong, and now the unions are, you don't hear much about them at all. But I know when PG&E joined the union, and it was just a new business that came into existence because it was tired of working for nothing. So, you know, and then when he became a business rep for PG&E, then it was a big deal, you know. They had $100 a plate dinners and all such as that to earn money for the political parties. And I know Governor Brown, that's governor now, he was one that came to all of our, not all of them, but meetings all the time when my husband would have their special meetings. And I used to talk to him a lot. And when he got elected, and he put out a notice that at that time, when you become a politician and out of his office, you was issued a new briefcase every year. And he said those briefcases are too high just to give somebody one every year when they should last from 5 to 10 years. So he told everybody, when you wear out a briefcase, you could bring it in, turn it in, and get a new one. And he wouldn't live in the the Capitol building. He got him a room across from the Capitol building. He wasn't married. And I used to kid him and tell him, you won't get reelected because you're too conservative. Well, when he ran again, he didn't get reelected. And he went on a sabbatical with Mother Teresa for 4 years, 3 or 4 years. I think it was 3. And then when he came back, he was mayor of Oakland. And then he ran for governor again, and he's in office right now. But he didn't own a car, which he was entitled to have a car. He could use it for his personal and everything else. He said when he needed a car, he would check it out just like everybody else did. But he didn't need a car. He walked to work. And so apparently he's still about as cheap as he was when he was first in office. But he was a nice person. And
we're done with the questions, and like we said, we just wanted to test out all the stuff. When we come back is when we'll ask you like further questions. We'll have you talking as long as you want. And tell us
Well,
all your stories.
I've said everything I need to say.
Well, there's a few more things, Betty, you could talk about that you've told me.
Some stories that she's told him, but right now it's on you. We're just trying to get a hang of it, trying to see how the room is. So when we come back, we'll have the questions of like, oh, this story you told me, or can you speak more on this story? So it'll be more put together than this.
Okay.
This is just for us to test it out.
Well, you gave us a lot of good information,
Yeah.
Betty.
That way we can
Absolutely.
we're gonna look back at the tape, pick out some things, and we're just gonna have you like ask you about things that you've talked about today.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting story.
Well,
Interesting. Avenal's such an interesting little town.
It seems pretty young. I know it's a young town, but it's hard to believe that there's so many stories and so much things that happen.
well, I guess when a new town starts up, there's a lot, like they had no money so they had to build their money up too.
They had to find a way.
Mm-hmm. And, 'cause just imagine starting a town and with no money.
No one's gonna stay. No one's gonna stick around.
And
And that's gonna be one of our questions: is why did you stick around? Why do people stick around in this community?
well, because my husband got a job here and he was always able to have a job. And then he volunteered for the union for a number of years. And then they hired him as a negotiator for years to negotiate wages and whatever, working conditions. And then when he got hired as a full-time business rep, then we had to move to Bakersfield because he worked out of the home. So he had to have an office in the house.
Down there.
And they didn't have cell phones and all that back then, so I answered the phone for nothing. And, but, I think we've had a good life, and
A happy life.
yes, and I don't think I'd be happy living anywhere else than here in Avenel. Because the people are so much different in a big town. I only had one friend that lived in the neighborhood, and it was kind of like this neighborhood here. I knew them all, and they'd stand out in the yard and talk for hours, but they wouldn't come in your house. And then when I rented it for a number of years, I'd go down there. Well, they'd all come out to see me and everything and visit with me. But it's different.
The sense of community is different. It's not really there.
Yeah, it's different here. And I know practically everyone on this street here, and I've known most of them all their life. The woman on the corner,
Woolley, Glenda Woolley.
yeah, and the one next door, and then
Melanie Ray.
I've known them for 20-some years when I moved back up here. I could even tell you a story about him, Antonio.
Go ahead.
When he was little and I moved up here, and he had a spray can to spray the ants all the time. He was out spraying the ants. And then one time, him and his friend pulled my gate open and broke a board off of it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I gave him a talk, and I told him, you know, that he shouldn't be doing that, that if I was home, I would always let him in to get his toy, his ball. And, but I said, if you do something like this again, then I'll have to talk to either your mother or the police. And he looked around at his friend and he said, I don't remember doing that. He didn't deny doing it. But he never did anything else.
You gave him a good scare?
Yeah. Oh, but they were, his older brother did my yard for years and years, from the time he got in high school till he went away to college. He mowed my lawn every week. And I paid him, you know. So, and then I know all the people lives on that street over there except these, and they just are moving in. And then the guy that lives on the corner, I've known him for 60-some years, or in the house at the end of the street, Joe Henderson.
60 years is a long time.
Well, it's been probably 70 years, but I know it's been 60 years.
For sure.
And he's got cancer, and his son has brain cancer, and his grandson has brain cancer. And he came over here to visit me not too long ago, and he said, now, Betty, anything you need, you let me know. And I thought, here, you're in worse shape than I am. But he would have somebody to come over and do it.
Oh, okay.
Because I had these kids that lived across the street, and I had a spa, and they were coming over and getting in it. And I said something when I was on vacation, and I said something to him, and he came over here, sent one of his workers, and put me in a motion light.
No.
And when I came home, I said, well, Joe, let me pay you for that. He said, oh, you don't have money enough to pay me.
That's the kind of community you get from a small town, and not
Yeah.
from a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Betty, we got a lot of recording, a lot of audio. We need to look through all of it. So
Okay.
I think.
Well,
Thank you.
well,
for
you're
for the
welcome.
chat.
Definitely appreciate your time.
Well,
Very much.
Yes, very much
We'll
so.
be back for
So-
more. We'll be back for more stories. Thank you.
yes.